Good morning, y'all. Hope you're doing good today. So I thought I would open by sharing some things that are on my mind. So I made notes last night about the video for today, and I actually wanted to film last night because I found, I'm getting ahead of myself, because I found that if I make my video the same day that I make the notes, because it's just kind of coming to me, it's like I'm in a state of flow, or like receiving the message, it flows better outwardly when I'm making the video for you all. And so if I make the notes a day before, then the next day when I go to present, it's kind of like broken. I have to feel my way through it, and it's like not it just doesn't flow the same. So but I hope it still works. The reason I didn't film last night when I was done with my note taking is because it was really late. So and I don't know how YouTube's algorithm works, but it's really interesting because I have a lot of things coming to my mind right now. I had something placed on my heart, and when I poured it all out into my notes, that was just that, right? And then I went to bed. I just couldn't keep my eyes open. Then this morning, I had a new channel pop up in my feed on my home tab for YouTube, and it was right in alignment with what I had written about. And that's the kind of thing where it's like, how, and it was wonderful. And so I want to share that with you all. So there's this new channel, and I'll drop a link down in the description, but this guy, I believe his name is Dan. I've watched about 3 of his videos so far. He's basically describing how our bodies respond to our mind, and specifically how we can have pain relief from mind over matter. And it goes very much into that, especially with regards to fear, and how if we can identify that we're actually interacting with our life in this reality from a position of fear, then our body responds in kind. Is it in kind or in like? I don't know. Likewise, I guess. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But it's like our body responds, right? And so it's definitely, I think we can all agree that there's some type of mind-body connection to some degree. And so that's been my experience anyway. And I've got a friend that I haven't spoken to in quite a while, actually, but I need to get in touch with her. But she has done some work in somatic healing, which is right in alignment with this topic. And so that's going to be kind of what we're talking about today, right? And then I want to share at the end this old book I bought. I don't even remember where I found it online. I thought, hey, I'm going to start looking for some really old books. And the cool thing about it is it's got notes from its previous owner, and they just kind of stick them in here like with these little transparent like tracing paper sheets, and they've just highlighted and wrote all in here. And I know some people don't like that, but I love that. And so I like to do that in my own books anyway, just for myself. And I'm aware that since I benefit from somebody else's thoughts, learning from other people, I'm hoping that my daughter can do the same when she grows up. She'll have all my books with my notes, and anybody else, she might want to pass my books off to. So but this is a cool little book, and so it's Shakespeare, and it's Hamlet, and so I feel confident that if we explore this book together, and especially the notes from this person, we'll come across some life lessons, and I'm just really excited to share this with you all. So we might dive into this soon. But before I get into the meat of my message today, I haven't forgotten about this book, and so we will be diving into chapter 5 next week, probably on Monday. So I'm really excited for that. And it's all about fear, I believe. I'm almost positive, but this is the whole second guessing yourself, right? It starts part 2, chapter 5, fear, trauma, and transformation. So we'll be getting into that. Okay, so let's get into the main message. And I didn't proofread this morning before making my video, so I'm hoping it'll just kind of come back to me as we go. You know, I think recognizing the effects of conditioning in our life is a huge part to, like, healing to the degree that you're able to let go of the past, and in such a way that it's not holding you back. And when I say holding you back, what I mean is you're able to freely move throughout your days with just a peaceful contentment. You're not on edge. You're not second guessing yourself constantly. You're not fearful. You're not expecting the worst, which this guy talks about, Dan, in his videos I'm going to share. I think his YouTube channel is called Pain Free now. So you know, conditioning happens not only in our mind with manipulative people, but also in our bodies. Our bodies respond too. And that's going to be at the heart of our message today. So, okay. So, here's the thing. When you just live naturally, because living should be a natural event. It should be a natural thing you just do without thinking about it and censoring yourself every step along the way. You know what I mean? It should just be this natural event, this natural thing. But when you are able to live naturally, you don't have to censor yourself. You just do. You just are. You just be, right? But one huge clue that there is a manipulator in your life is that, or that there has been, right? Because your past can produce the conditioning that you're still carrying, right? So whether they're currently in your life or they're from your past. One big point of validation for me is that every step on your path is like you hesitate. You live your life that way. In that mode, you hesitate. It's kind of like walking on eggshells, but to the extreme, right? This is not the same as like a victim mindset to me. This is different. This is just conditioning, okay, that happens automatically, which, you know, if you consider God's design, this is supposed to be a safety mechanism that as we live and we experience things, if we experience consequence, and it's like dangerous even, then it becomes encoded in our mind. Or if we perceive it, as dangerous, it may not actually be dangerous, but we can perceive an experience as dangerous. And if we do that, then it's like coded somewhere in our subconscious, and we operate in that manner, and it can be amplified as we go because we unknowingly, the word unwittingly came to me, I don't even know if that's right here, but we unknowingly are perpetuating this and keeping this this fear factor going in our life, just because we're trying to be cautious. You know what I'm saying? So there's a balance here that we need to seek, right? Okay. But that's one huge clue, one piece of, or point of validation that you have had, or that you do have a manipulator in your life, is that you just live in a way that you hesitate. You just, you know. So, and sometimes, let me complete that thought. And the reason you hesitate is because it's like, in the past, it may have started because you didn't know when there may be an outburst or some type of explosion. You know what I mean? Like if you grew up with a parent that was emotionally dysregulated, for example, or it could be just continual criticism or judgment or shaming or anything like that, right? So there's a lot of different things that can happen in your life that can create this dynamic of you hesitating just with your very essence. And sometimes, usually this is because you've been conditioned to expect these hurtful explosions, which I just said. I'm reading my notes, y'all. Or shaming, or loaded body language even. Sometimes this conditioning can come across in a covert manner, but it still gets the message across, because communication isn't always direct. Communication is our body language too. It's our tone of voice, inflection, our energy. You've heard the old saying, looks can kill. You can experience that as a child. So you can be intimidated. You can be made fearful as a part of this conditioning and this power in this manipulator trying to set this power dynamic where you are in a position of subordinates, right? It's sad if it's a parent-child dynamic, because that's an exploitation of that situation, because you're already subordinate. You're already dependent on this person that has been really gifted from God with this position of authority to take care of. It's supposed to be used in a good way to take care of you as a child and to support you and build you up and teach you to trust yourself. And instead, that gets exploited. That position of power gets exploited sometimes when you're talking about that kind of dynamic with parents, right? Like I said, you just kind of end up living a life of hesitancy, okay? So you can notice on the days that you're really productive, you're in a state of flow, right? And it's like everything's good. But as soon as you remember, like if you have someone in your life, as an example, currently that's very dominating and tries to always position themselves in a dominant position, like there's a power play going on, which is strange that someone would live like that all the time, or any of the time really. But it's like as soon as you remember that this time is coming up, that your path is going to cross this person who affects your peace, it's kind of like you experience the whole Pavlov's dog situation, okay? So even if, let's say they're having a good day, because a lot of these people are hot and cold with their interactions with you. So let's say they're having a good day and your paths cross, right? It doesn't matter at this point, because your body immediately responds. You can tense up your shoulders. You can even develop a migraine just in anticipation. Just anticipating being around these people can create a migraine. All right. And you can try to use logic to overcome these impulses, your conditioned responses. But the conditioning is so deeply embedded in us that it eclipses our efforts, right? I think there's an eclipse coming up, so that was on my mind. But that's what happens. Your conditioning is just so deeply rooted within you that it truly does take the forefront, the priority over any efforts that you're trying to use logic and say, hey, this person really doesn't. That's deception. This person truly doesn't have power over me or authority over me. I really shouldn't be afraid of this person. It's not logical. So that's the conflict sometimes that we live with. Logic tells you these things, but for whatever reason, your body even just responds like it truly is that way, right? And it's disheartening. It's very disheartening. That's the struggle that we deal with after and even during, when we're involved in some manner with a manipulator, right? So there's some alternative methods for healing, right? And I believe they're largely founded on trying to realign our conscious efforts back into the healthy dynamic of faith. What I call faith as a spiritual person, which is mind over matter. Whatsoever you believe, whatsoever you ask, believe that you shall receive these things and you shall have them. That's what the Bible says. So belief is huge. It's huge, right? Whatever you put your faith in. anticipate. See, anticipation, you might even say, is a form of faith. If you anticipate things being tense and stressful, you anticipate that judgment. You anticipate the shaming. You anticipate the scary. It's really mentally ill. Excuse me, y'all. It's like this intense, though, like you don't really know how mentally ill they are type of energy if you're around this person. If you anticipate that, it's like, you know, that's anticipation is before it even happens, sort of like expecting it, believing it to happen, and that's like a form of faith. So it's not your fault, but it's just becoming aware is a huge key component, in my opinion, to overcoming it, right? So there's this old quote, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but it's whether you think you can or you can't, you're right, you know, and life seems to prove that to some degree. So it's kind of like that, you know. And when I talk about alternative methods to healing, sometimes you hear about energy healers or somatic healing practitioners, like I mentioned about my friend. So there's things you can look into. And let me just say this. Let me just pause and interject this right here. So this is my perspective. Regardless of your spiritual beliefs, yoga is a wonderful way to get reconnected with your body awareness. There's something called body awareness, and it's really interesting. It's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. You just assume, like I did. I assumed, well, I don't really know how you define that, but it sounds like something we all have, you know. But it's true that a lot of us actually have a disconnect there. And resolving that disconnect can be done through practices like yoga, which is a discipline. It's a disciplinary hobby, and it's one that can help heal you. It's also got wonderful healing, how do I want to say this? Roots, foundations, as far as, and let me just share this. I put, I think, 3 of the videos from this new channel I found that I mentioned with you all, Pain Free Now, in the playlist for the warriors. And there's one in particular that lists, I don't know, there's like 15 or 20 points. And when I was reading them, I thought, this is a lot of what yoga helps you to do, which is all helping you to heal. And so yoga can be healing. From my perspective, regardless of your spiritual practices, to me, it's about what you make it. Do you make it a spiritual thing, or do you make it a body awareness thing? Do you make it a helpful habit kind of thing, where you learn to breathe, where you learn to connect with your body and check in with yourself and take authority over your body, you know, and try to create more peace in your life? So it's all about what you make it, to me. It doesn't have to be, you know, against your beliefs or whatever. And that's my perspective. And I just hate to see when people are trying to make a good effort in healing themselves and coming to a place of peace and breaking PTSD and stuff like that. Any of their efforts that are, you know, from a good place, it's awful that there are people that want to trample on that. You know what I'm saying? So, but there's always people that are gonna find something to, you know, have friction with. It's almost like they need that to breathe. They need friction to breathe or something. It's crazy. But anyway, let's get back. So, not only is our mind conditioned with manipulators, but our body is also conditioned. So let me give you an example of the natural flow of the body being in alignment with nature and therefore God's design, okay, our intended experience. Let me give you this example. And I've said this before in a past video a long time ago. So some of us have experienced this and others of us haven't, but there's studies even done. It's documented that nursing mothers will have better lactation, the flow, when they're nursing their infant. it will be better when they are feeling love towards their baby. It will actually, that there's a link between specifically their feeling of love, okay? There's a link between that and the body's response that benefits their baby. And so it's cause and effect. But what I want us to notice here in this example is it's body and nature, which is automatic, and feelings. There's no mind involved here. There's no logic or conscious intention involved here. So it's when we get out of our own way that we experience the peace of just living. But conditioning changes our locus of control. It is locus, right? Our focus of control, our locus, our central point, where we operate from, I think is what that means. Yeah, I think that's it. But conditioning, that's what it does. It changes our locus of control to be external, okay? Because we're made to pay attention to this manipulator. They demand it. And so we give that up unintentionally, but it takes it away from where it's supposed to reside within us. See, it's theft in a bad way. So we end up censoring ourselves to ensure our peace of mind, our safety, our acceptance with our spouse or family. And that's how that control happens, that they exert. Okay, so you see how our concern for another's peace of mind steals our ability to retain our focus, okay? Because then, and only then, think about this, if it's only when we're able to retain our focus for our own life that we can choose to release it and live in faith. In other words, you don't have to censor yourself with God. God knows us, right? And so it's a totally different way of operating. Okay. In spiritual speak, you would say to give it to God. Give it to God. So it's kind of like what it means to just live without censoring your every move. So in other words, you can't release something you don't have. You know, you can't release your intention, your conscious efforts to God and just be in a state of flow when they're being focused over here and given here because it's expected. You don't even own them anymore. You're a puppet being pulled by the strings of this, this person. And so when you can get that back, right, then you can figure out a practice of some sort to have that connection here, which is how it should have been all along, and release it and understand that there is an unconditional love, right? It doesn't mean that you exploit that. So even though there's an unconditional love, there can still be consequence if your heart's not right. You know what I mean? So, all right. Okay. So there's also a channel, Barbara Frone, and she's great, but she had a great video. I wrote yesterday, but I wrote these notes yesterday, so I think it may have been, I don't know if it was yesterday or day before, but it helped kind of inspire this message too. It just kind of, was part of my thought process here. She says that everything is all between you and God, right? And yes, it should be. I absolutely agree. Okay, absolutely. So, but when we are more worried about pacifying another human, right? Like, that's not good. So we are instructed to love one another as ourselves in the Bible, okay? Notice that it doesn't say at the exclusion of ourselves, because we are basically living for them, right? Like in totality. Where their expectations are our filter for life, okay? It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. We're to love them as ourselves. So, it's super interesting to me how this can happen so covertly. That's how the spirit world works. Just like how love is fuel for our bodies, and they respond, we need to realize anxiety and stress affects our bodies too, like greatly. And it can be happening like this program running on the background, and affecting us. And so conscious awareness is huge. Body awareness is part of that, right? So I just want to encourage you to learn how to truly detach from making yourself responsible for others' contentment. I don't know what's going on here behind me. Lots of honking. But yeah, it's kind of like that old saying, happiness is an inside job. It's true. So if you're entangled with someone who can't self-motivate and or needs to control you to literally regulate themselves, again, it's like their air to breathe, then we need to, within our own mind and heart, call it what it is, and that's a mental illness. They're using you and their manipulation of you as a drug. I forget what kind of drug that is, where it's kind of like you're just zoned out, those kind that knock you out. You don't really even know where you are or what your name is. They kind of use you like that to pacify themselves. That's a mental illness, okay? Or here's the other thing. Or they're acting like they can't regulate themselves or be at peace without you complying with whatever it is they're demanding or asking of you, because they have a hidden agenda. So this can all be intentional. Not like, I mean, it could be because they need this to, to be okay. But it could also be just to keep you distracted. And kind of like on a leash. Because they're using you, and they're maybe even going to use you furthermore for something even worse down the road. You never know. So you see what I'm saying? So there's never, in my opinion, there's never a good reason to endure being pressured, and to allow others' expectations to be rubbed in our face. Just for that to take priority, there's never a good reason for this. So don't live your life as a willing sacrifice out of love. It's one thing to serve others, but it's something else to actually live and normalize the living as a victim. It's two different things. So, yeah. So love isn't meant to be a struggle. Maybe at times, because life does have its challenges, but not like an ongoing, friction. So people who need your constant attention, whether they genuinely need it, it's unhealthy either way. You know what I mean? Whether they genuinely need it to regulate themselves and there's this mental illness, or whether they're a wolf in sheep's clothing and they make you think that they need you to manipulate you for some other reason, okay, for their benefit. So people who need your constant attention, your compliance, your efforts for no fruit, they'll keep you distracted and they'll wear you out being distracted. These people keep you living via your own efforts, because I don't see God endorsing this. Think about it. This is kind of keeping you from this state of living automatically, living in a state of peaceful surrender to the higher power, it prevents you from that, because it keeps you, you're really spinning your wheels. You don't know it for a while, sometimes for a decade or longer, but they're keeping you just exhausted from your own efforts, going nowhere. You see what I'm saying? And you still have to put forth effort in life. I'm not saying that you just, once you're out of the situation, you just sit here and everything falls in your lap because you give it all to God and He does it all. It's not like that. It's that when you're able to bring that locus of control back into yourself, then your efforts actually go somewhere. You see what I'm saying? Because you're in alignment. Just to keep it simple, if you're, from a non-spiritual perspective, but from a spiritual perspective, then when you bring this back to yourself, then you have a connection with God instead, right? And that offers you so much peace, and knowing that you don't have to censor every step you take. And because you don't have to censor every step you take, which I've talked about that a lot on my channel, then you're able to live in a state of flow. You can just release the tension in your shoulders. Sometimes your migraines just literally go away. I know this firsthand. You don't stumble over your words. It's just a state of relaxation and peace, and your efforts just increase, and yet they're more fruitful than ever. It's not a burden. Your efforts are not burdensome. That's why, Jesus says, when we take His yoke upon us, it's light. It's heavy over here with these people, but it's light with Him. There's a difference. It's a different way of operating in life. And so they're stealing that from you. Okay? But that's what they do. They keep you living in your own efforts. Okay? So, what I mean is, we are meant to live as a vessel for God, not from our own volition, but from God's manna. Okay? Spiritual manna, life force energy. So, yeah. So suddenly, it's like you're getting things done. You feel good, you're energized, you're sleeping better, because you're in alignment with the divine as a vessel, okay? So you're in a state of receiving. Now, this is really interesting. This is something that really resonated with me as I was journaling, and it just kind of came out, and I thought, yes, this hits home, right? You're in this state of receiving, okay, when you're able to shift over here. And yet, by receiving from God, you're so full, you overflow, and at that point you're able to give to others too, right? But when you're giving, talking about giving that way versus giving to complete depletion by sacrificing your true nature as a vessel, because you're not able to receive, you're so focused over here, you can't get that. You're no longer receiving. You're just giving. Okay? You're out of alignment. Then you'll slowly self-destruct over time, trying to please. So the irony here is, I wonder how they come up with that word, irony. I wonder if it's related to iron. Isn't that kind of, I don't know, I'm thinking of iron sharpens iron. Yeah. So the irony here is that in the spirit of iron sharpens iron, by getting out of the way, just removing yourself, and there's no confrontations needed with these people, it actually creates an opportunity for them to take their place as a vessel for God and experience. You hope that at some point they will, and they may have to get to a really bad low place first, but you hope that, by you kind of creating this distance, this space between you, then ideally that would position them to stop using you, and they would start to get what they need from the divine. You can't substitute that, that's not your place. They may guilt and shame you like it is your place to give to that degree, but it's not. It's God's place, right? So if they can't surrender their ego, right, because this is a place of submission, then they're not going to be able to receive that gift. What is that gift? It's the gift of abundance, right? It's like a fountain. It never ends, okay? God never runs out. So it's like exactly what they're looking for in all the wrong places. And the biggest sign is a lack of peace. A lack of peace. You sometimes need a sharp eye for this, because they can also fake peace. But when you have the wisdom, you're going to see through that, okay? So eventually you come to a place of understanding that it is an act of love to create some space, okay? So God should be first in their life, even if it means that you are last. Lots of verses about praying for our enemies and even doing good. I mean, it's all in the Bible. But we are told to do everything as unto God and not as unto man, which means God should be our director, our guide, the one we seek to please, not them. So I hope this has been encouraging. I hope that it's gotten the wheels turning for you. I hope that it's been helpful, and don't forget to check out the description and look at some of the links I'm going to share. Hopefully some good resources for you, and I just thank you so much for coming along to hear the message today. I hope that you have a beautiful day. And oh, I almost forgot to share with you all. I didn't bring it, but I'll put it up on the screen. So I'm making this little artwork right now, and it's in process. I still got to add the stars, and you can use just a opaque white paint or a white gel pen and just drop in some stars. So I'll show you the finished product when I get it done. But this is just practice. It was a practice activity out of one of my art books, and I'm really excited about it. I'm still trying to do my watercolors. I only get to do one or two every couple of weeks, but I really enjoy it, and I just hope that you're able to find a peaceful practice like that for yourself as well. So again, thanks so much, and I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.